إذا الأمجاد قد عظمت فللأمجاد بانيها ومن يسعى إلى العليا سيدركها بما فيها ويبني مجده جذلا فروح الفذ يعليها ليصبح همة تروي عن العليا.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Warm welcome to everyone on the show, this groundbreaking mathematics show that we are going to be hosting now on ITV, the K-Way Mathematics Show. I'm your host, Mohammed Kota from the K-Way Mathematics Institute, and I'm going to be showing you, the learner, the parents, the teachers, the shortest humanly possible ways in order to do mathematics. Now, with matric exams around the corner, grade 11 stressing, grade 12 stressing, the new CAP syllabus coming into play, we want now to create a hype, we want to create an excitement on the show, and we hope that you're going to enjoy every single process that we're going to be showing you in mathematics. Now, boys and girls, what you need to understand is that mathematics is very, very easy. You just need to understand processes, and mostly it's copy and paste. Now, grade 12s, this show is going to cover grade 11 and 12. Grade 12s, you know that at least 70% of your paper is grade 11 content. So what we're going to be doing is covering the grade 11 and 12 content on the show in order to prepare you for your exams. Okay, so let's look at what paper 1 is going to look like. Without any further ado, let's just get cracking with the show and let's see how far we get in preparing you for that exam. Boys and girls, let's get started. Now, grade 11 and 12, we know you've got paper 1 and you've got paper 2. What do we need to know in order for you to prepare yourself for paper 1? The first topic you need to know is quadratic equations. Now, this is going to be your checklist. Quadratic equations. Question number 1, paper 1, we all know from grade 10, solve for x. Question number 2, you're going to have exponents. Question number 3, you're going to have simultaneous equations. Question number 4, you're going to have exponential equations. We now go on to functions, and we all know what are functions. We're going to have the straight line, the parabola, the hyperbola with the shift in asymptotes, the exponential graph with the shift in asymptotes, as well as the log function. Now grade 11s, you don't need to know the log functions, that is only for grade 12. We then have finance, sequences and series. Grade 12s, calculus, probability. Boys and girls, that is your checklist to know whether you know paper 1. Let's go on to our checklist for paper 2. Paper 2, we start off with analytics. And this here will give you your 150 marks in your exam. I'm trying to put it in about the same order. And as we go through all the shows, we're going to go through all these topics step by step. Let's now look at analytics. We've got paper 2 analytics. We've then got circle analytics, which is for grade 12 only. You've then got trigonometry. You've got geometry, let's put geometry, and that we all know is your circle geometry for grade 11 and 12, and you've got your data handling or statistics. Boys and girls, that's now going to give you your second 150 marks for your exam. Now, let's get started. This here is your checklist as we go through it. Obviously, there is one more topic in here which will fall under your quadratic equation, which is inequality. So I'm just going to put quadratic equations and inequality. So let's just put the inequalities in there. Now, as we're going to go through all the series, through the Ramadan program, we're going to go through each section, topic for topic, assuming that you, the viewer, know absolutely nothing. So even if you are a parent sitting at home and you asking yourself, how can I assist my child? Hopefully you'd be taking out your pen and paper, you'd be taking out your books, and you'd be working with us. This is a good time for you to familiarize yourself, you the parent, to familiarize yourself with what's happening in your schools, in your child's mathematics career. Okay, so without any further delay, let's get started with our first topic on quadratic equations. So take out your books, take out your pens, get your scientific calculators ready, and let's get cracking with quadratic equations. So, let's start. Paper 1, question number 1, solve for x quadratic equations. Now, let's put the heading, quadratic equations. Equations, there we go. Quadratic equations means that you must get two solutions. The word quadratic, I'm going to put a square sign. So whenever you see a square sign in the question, you know you need to get two solutions. So let's have a look at how the question will be posed. Solve for x. So question in the exam. Now remember something, boys and girls, I'm going to be explaining it to you here. Exactly what I write here, you can do it, copy and paste. The only difference is in the exam that the values will change. We are going to show you systems, we're going to show you how quadratic equations are done. So let's start with the first one. If I tell you, let's take an example, x squared minus 2x minus 8 is equal to 0. That's your question in the exam. Solve for x will be worth 4 marks. Now this is very basic. I know you as grade 12s are going to say, Mr. K, why are you starting off with something so basic? Because boys and girls, if you do not know how to factorize, if you do not know how to get your solutions here in quadratic equations, you won't be able to do functions. Neither will you be able to do trigonometry in paper 2. Grade 11s and 12s, you should know by now that this could also look like sine squared x minus 2 sine x minus 8 equals 0. And then the question may ask you, give the general solution. So you need to know quadratic equations in order to do functions, because that is a parabola. 2. But in any case, don't worry about that right now. Let's show you how to factorize. The two types of factorization that I'm going to be showing you guys today is the trinomial, where the coefficient is 1, and then we're going to do the trinomial where there is a number in front. Absolutely crucial. Please make sure you pay attention and you listen. Let's get started. Now, boys and girls, this here is a trinomial expression. How do we know it's a trinomial? We got x squared, x to the power 1, and a constant. 3 terms. Tri meaning 3 terms. Bicycle meaning how many terms? 2 terms. Polynomial, many terms. So this is a trinomial expression. We need to factorize it. Now factorization has been introduced to you from grade 8 already. But 90% of you still don't know until grade 12, up to grade 12 how to factorize. Let's get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to do here, we're going to break this up equal to 0. What are our two factors to give me x? X times x to give me x squared. X times x to give me x squared. Now, many of you might know it mentally by now already, that the factors, now you need to ask yourself, what are my factors of 8 to give me a negative 2 when added? Many of you can do this mentally by now. 4 and 2, yes. 4 times 2 gives me 8, and a 4 and a 2 will give me a 2, yes. But if you want to, on the side, you can actually do it physically. You can write, what are your factors of 8 to give you a negative 2 when added? So, let's be stupid. Let's be stupid. Let's be wrong. Let's say 8 and 1. Yes, 8 times 1 gives me 8. But can a 8 and a 1 give me a negative 2 when added? No, it will either give me a 9 or it will give me a 7. So that must be incorrect. Give me another factor of 8. Let's take 4 and 2. Does 4 times 2 give me 8? Yes, it does. Does a 4 and a 2 give me a 2 when added or subtracted? Yes, it can. What must the sign be? Negative 4 plus 2 to give me negative 2. Don't forget to multiply the signs. Negative times positive is a negative. What is my last sign? Negative. So now we know we are right. So all you do is you copy and you paste. Negative 4, negative 4. Plus 2, plus 2. There we go. Those are our two factors. Why? Because when we multiply this out, we'll get back that. X times x, x squared. Negative 4 times positive 2 to give me negative 8. Minus 4x plus 2x will give me my minus 2 in the middle. So now I've got two factors equal to 0. As we all know, grade 11s and 12s, I know that by this time you know this already. I'm going to take you from the most basic up to the most complex one that you could see in grade 11 or 12. So here goes. X minus 4 equals to 0, or x plus 2 equals to 0, x is equal to plus 4, or x is equal to negative 2. There we go, boys and girls. Those are your two solutions. Okay, so this is the method. If you want to, I hope many of you are recording the show. If you are recording the show, put the screen on pause, take down the problem, see whether you can do it, practice on this to make sure that you have mastered it. Remember, the purpose of the show is to show you process, how mathematics is done and how the topics are done. Let's go on to a second example. Example number 2. So let's go. X into x minus 1 is equal to 12. Now please, do not ever in the exam, many of you make the same mistake. You go and say x equal 12 or x minus 1 equal 12. Can never. You've got to multiply it out. So x times x to give me x squared, x times minus 1 to give me minus x. The plus 12 comes on the other side as minus 12 is equal to 0. Because it's quadratic, because it's square, I must have how many solutions? 2 solutions. So now we refactorize this. So there we go, we factorize it equal to 0, x times x to give me x squared. What are my factors of 12 to give me negative 1 in the middle? Factors of 12, 4 and 3. To get minus 1, minus 4 plus 3. Negative times positive is a negative. What is my last sign? Negative. So we know we are right. Minus 4 plus 3. Minus 4 plus 3. These are my two factors. These are my two solutions. X minus 4 is equal to 0. Or my second factor, x plus 3 equals to 0. X is equal to plus 4. Or x is equal to negative 3. There we go. This is the way we do a quadratic equation. Okay, boys and girls, we're now going for a quick ad break. When we come back, we're going to do more complex problems. I hope you enjoyed our first segment of it. Stay tuned for our next segment.
الأمجاد قد عظمت فللأمجاد بانيها إذا الأمجاد قد عظمت فللأمجاد بانيها.
Welcome back to the second part of our show. And we are continuing here. Boys and girls, before we went for the ad break, we left you here with the quadratic equations. Okay, so hope you guys took the two of them down. We're now going to go on to more advanced equations. So let's get started. Okay, this was the first type that we've done where the coefficient of x was 1. So let's go back here and we had x squared minus 2x minus 8 equal to 0. As you can see, the coefficient here, the coefficient in front of x squared was 1. What happens when you have another coefficient? When you have a coefficient greater than 1, how then do you then factorize and find your perfect factors? Let's get started. So what happens in a situation like this where you have 8x squared minus 2x minus 15 equals to 0. Now there are many different ways in which your teachers or your tutors show you how it's done. I'm going to show you my method. You like my method? Use it. You don't like it? Whatever floats your boat. So let's get started. I use a method what we call, and don't laugh, it's called snotkop. Now we all know for our international viewers, this is a very typical South African word, a snotkop. Now you might be asking, what is a snotkop? A snotkop is a little boy that runs at school. You know that little one that you always had in school who's always crying and nose is always leaking and licking his lips. You might ask, what has that got to do with mathematics? So let's go and let's draw his face. There's Mr. Snotkop. You've got his eyes, you've got his nose, oops, you've got his nose, and you've got his mouth. All right, let's put a big smiling, okay, a sad face there. That's Mr. Snotkop. Now he's always crying, and his nose is always leaking. Okay, so now, what has this got to do with that? So what do? We replace his eyes with the first term and the last term. 8 and 15, that's his eyes. His nose is a multiplication sign. What's his mouth? We now take the negative 2 in the middle and we make that his mouth. So there we go. We've got his eyes, we've got his nose, we've got his mouth. Now he's crying, so we need tears. The tears in mathematics are his factors. So what are the factors of 8? Let's choose any two random factors, 4 and 2. Now you all know when you cry, not only does your one eye cry, both eyes cry. So if you have your factors of 8, you must have your factors of 15. Give me factors of 15. Numbers that go into 15, 5 and 3. Now the only thing we're short of, we've got the eyes, we've got the nose, we've got the mouth, we've got the tears. We're short of the, you know what. So let's multiply. Let's cross multiply. 4 times 3, 12. 2 times 5, 10. Can a 12 and a 10 give you a negative 2 when added? Yes, it can. This has got to be negative. That has got to be positive. Because minus 12 plus 10 gives me negative 2. And you must multiply the signs out. Negative times positive is a negative. And what's your last sign? Negative. So, there we go. Perfect factors. So we've got 4 and 5, 2 and 3. Right? Your first two, first bracket. Second two, second bracket. I'll do another one. We're going to do another 1 or 2 examples of this to make sure that you understand. So let's go. First bracket, second bracket equal to 0. What's my first bracket? 4 and 5. 4 and 5. What's my second bracket? 2 and 3. We need x squared, so we put x and x. Now which bracket gets the positive? Which bracket gets the negative? You can't tata my chance. You can't just suck thumb and say, okay, this one will be positive, that one will be negative. No, you can't. Let's multiply these two out. You start from the two next to each other. 5 times 2 is 10. What do I need? Plus 10. Put a plus. 3 times 4 is 12. I need minus 12. I put a minus. And there we go, fully factorized, boys and girls. You now can take your two factors equated to 0. So we say 4x plus 5 equals to 0, or 2x minus 3 equals to 0. Solve for x. Solve for x now. 4x is equal to negative 5. Divide by 4, divide by 4. X is equal to minus 5 over 4. Or 2x is equal to positive 3. X is equal to divide by 2, 3 over 2. There we go. That is the system in which we use to get our factors. Just a quick recap. Quick recap for you guys. How do we do this? So Mr. Snotkop, let's redo you very quick. There's your face. Please don't show this in your exam. Your teachers are going to think you're not lekker in your head. Let's start. 8 and 15. Cross multiply to get negative 2. Right. What do we need here? Factors of 8, 4 and 2. Factors of 15, 5 and 3. Let's cross multiply. 4 times 3, 12. 2 times 5, 10. To get minus 2, minus 12 plus 10. Negative times positive is a negative. Your last sign is a negative. You know you write first bracket, second bracket. 4, 5, 2, 3. 4, 5, 2, 3. X and x to get x squared. Start from the two next to each other. So there we go. 4, 5, 2, 3. 5 times 2, 10. What do I need? Positive. Put a plus. 3 times 4 is 12. What do I need? Negative. Put a negative. There we go. Those are your factors. Okay, boys and girls, a problem like this is worth 4 to 5 marks. Please make sure you know this. You're going to be using this concept from the beginning right through until the end of grade 12. Okay, let's go on to one more problem like this, just to get you practicing. Now, boys and girls, those of you who want to know all of this here, remember all these systems, all these processes are on our DVD set. We've got 12 discs that cover the entire grade 11 and 12 syllabus. Every humanly possible process is on the set. So, use this show, use these problems, and we'll get back to you. Okay, let's now go on to the second question. Let's take another example. Let's make up one. Let's see. Let's hope that it will work. 6x squared minus x minus 15 equals to 0. Let's use Mr. Snotkop process in order to get our solution. Right. By now you should be good. By now you should be trying it and attempting it on your own. So let's start. Snotkop, 6 and 15 in order, cross multiply to give you the middle term, which is negative 1. Remember, if there isn't a term there, that's 1. What are your factors of 6? 3 and 2. What are your factors of 15? 5 and 3. Cross multiply. 3 times 3, 9. 5 times 2, 10. Can a 9 and a 10 give you a negative 1? Yes, it can. This must be negative. That must be positive. Positive times negative is a negative. What's my last sign? negative. So here goes 3, 5, 2, 3. 3, 5, 2, 3. Copy and paste. 3, 5, 2, 3. To get x squared, we put x and x. Again, I asked you the question. Which one gets a positive? Which one gets a negative? 5 times 2 is 10. What do I need? Negative. 3 times 3 is 9. What do I need? Positive. There we go. Those are our two factors. 3x minus 5 equals to 0, or 2x plus 3 equals to 0. Boys and girls, let's solve for x. 3x is equal to plus 5. X is equal to 5 over 3. Or 2x is equal to negative 3. X is equal to negative 3 over 2. Quite easily done. That's done. This was the first form of quadratic equations that you got, where you have perfect. Why do we call it a perfect quadratic? Because they've got perfect factors that will be cross multiplied in order to give you this. Now, what happens in a situation? So this was topic number 1 in quadratic equations, solve for x. Let's now go on to the second topic, where we got to use the quadratic formula, where we cannot find factors. So no matter what you do, you cannot find factors to this. So let's try and see what happens when you don't get factors. How do you get the solution? So topic number 2 is using the quadratic formula. Now the question in the exam will simply state solve for x. But your clue will be, grade 11s, your clue will be correct to 2 decimal places. Now the minute the question says correct to 2 decimal places, you know that it doesn't have perfect. So you can't use Mr. Snotkop anymore. Now you've got to use the quadratic formula. And what is the quadratic formula to solve for x? The quadratic formula, I'm just going to put it here on the side. I'm going to put it here. So this is where we're going to be doing our calculation. This is going to be the rule. Remember, mathematics is a game. Every question, every topic has got its rules. Follow the rules, apply the rules, you'll get the right result. So, the quadratic formula, boys and girls, please learn this. I know it's on your formula sheet. Many of you say, but why do I need to learn it? It's on my formula sheet. You've got to know it by memory. If you don't know it by memory, you'll never be able to answer it in the exam. Okay, let's get started. X is equal to minus b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now it might be looking very similar to some of these formulas that we have here. Don't stress, don't worry about these formulas. All you need to focus on is that formula. Let's get started. Now we know what is a, what is b, what is c. So if I have a quadratic equation, if I told you solve for x, here's the question, 2x squared minus 3x minus 5 equals to 0. Now, what is a, what is b, what is c? We all know by now that the coefficient of x squared is a. The coefficient of x, including the sign, is b. Whatever comes after that, that is your c value. So that's a, that's b, that's c. We now take this, we plug it into the formula, and we use our calculators in order to get it correct to 2 decimal places. Sometimes they might say, leave your answer in simplest third form. No problem. Let's now apply. So that's the question. That's how it will appear in the exam. This is where we start. Now, because they told us correct to 2 decimal places, we're going into the quadratic formula immediately. X is equal to minus b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Boys and girls, please, you need to write the formula. Write the formula so that you get a mark for that formula. If you do not write the formula, they're going to subtract a mark. Okay, take this problem down. Let's cut for an ad break. Time to pay the bills. Make sure that you can try it on your own. As soon as we come back from the break, from the ad break, we'll give you the solution.
الأمجاد قد عظمت فللأمجاد بانيها إذا الأمجاد قد عظمت فللأمجاد بانيها.
Boys and girls, welcome back from our ad break, and I hope during our ad break you had time to attempt this. Let's see how right or how wrong you were. Let's get started. Okay, so we ended off with this 2x squared minus 3x minus 5 equals to 0. It said correct to 2 decimal places. So now we go directly into our quadratic formula. Boys and girls, come on, this is not rocket science. At this stage, we don't need to do 20, 30, 40 examples of the same thing. So one example, and we're going to move on to the next topic. So please make sure it is an exam question. So please make sure you know it. Let's get started. Right, so x is equal to minus b. So it's minus, there's a minus, there's a negative. b, what's b? Negative 3. plus minus the square root b squared minus 3 squared minus 4. A is how much? 2. C is how much? Negative 5. All over 2a. 2 into 2. Are we good to go? Have you all substituted well? Give yourself a tick. Well done. You haven't yet got it right, so you haven't yet passed the question. Make sure that you get it right from this step on. So negative times negative is positive, so you got 3 plus minus the square root of negative 3 squared is 9. Negative times negative is a positive. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 times 5 is 40 all over 4. So x is equal to 3 plus minus the square root of 40 plus 9, 49 over 4. I'm just going to move over here because we don't have enough space. So now we've got two solutions, plus or minus. So x is equal to 3 plus the square root of 49 all over 4, or x is equal to 3 minus the square root of 49 over 4. If we can simplify this further, this is going to equal to 3 plus, what is the square root of 49? 7. So it's 3 plus 7 over 4, or it's going to be 3 minus 7 over 4. My two solutions, 3 plus 7, 10. 10 over 4, 5 over 2. That's your first solution. Or 3 minus 7, negative 4. Negative 4 over 4, minus 1. There we go. Boys and girls, those are our two solutions. Right? Let's quickly go through it. We substituted here. We've got two solutions. 3 plus 7. Now, not in all cases will it be as perfect as this. You can sometimes in the exams have this here as an irrational number, 3 plus square root 2 over 4, then that would be your final solution. Okay, so that is solving for x by using, so we did factorization. We've done solving for x by using the quadratic formula. We're now going on to by squaring both sides. So put the heading by squaring both sides. Solving for x by squaring both sides. So let's erase and let's get cracking. Now again, boys and girls, in the exam, it's not going to tell you solve for x by squaring both sides. You're going to have to identify that you've got to square both sides. And how are you going to do it? That's what we're about to show you. Let's start. Square root, question in the exam, the square root 2 minus x is equal to x plus 4. Let's make it minus 4 is equal to x. Question like this, grade 11 or 12, would be 4 to 5 marks. Solve for x. Let's get started. Now, we've got a third sign. This is called a third sign. It's not called a square root sign or cube root sign. It is called a third sign. So let's get started. What do we need to do? Okay, process. We need to get this on the one side of the equal to sign. Everything else moves. So, what's stuck stays. What's loose moves. Positive or negative means they are loose terms. They move over. So what do we have? We've got the square root of 2 minus x is equal to x. Minus 4 will come on this side as plus 4. There we go. I'm going to show you one example. We might do 2 or 3 examples of this before we go on to your big nightmare, which we all know, completing the square. So stay tuned for that. Stay focused. Stay focused. So square root 2 minus x is equal to x minus 4. We square both sides. So let's square this side and let's square that side. Why are we squaring the side? To get rid of the third sign. So the square and the square root will cancel. What am I left with? 2 minus x is equal to x plus 4 squared. Square the first term, x squared. Square the second term, plus 4 squared, gives me 16. Multiply the 2, so x times 4, 4x, and times it by 2. Remember, that's the shortcut of squaring a binomial. Multiply the 2 and times it by 2 to get the middle term. So x times 4 is 4x times 2, 8x. So we got x squared plus 8x plus 16. If many of you don't know how to do this, let's do one quick example here on the side for you, just to see whether you can do it. Let's say 2x minus 3 squared. Forget about that now. Let's move up here. Let's remove the brackets. Square the first term, 4x squared. Square the second term, negative 3 squared, gives me 9. I need my middle term. What's the rule? Multiply the 2 and times it by 2. Multiply the 2 and times it by 2. So 2x times minus 3, minus 6x. Minus 6x times 2, minus 12x. And there we go. We've expanded it. Instead of you having to put the bracket, and then you all know FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. You don't want to. You want to avoid. You want to minimize your effort. So this here is minimizing your effort. So let's go back to our problem. Forget about that. Let's go back to our problem. So now this is quadratic. So what do I have? X squared plus 8x plus 16. Let's take this on the other side. Plus 2 becomes minus 2. Minus x becomes plus x equals to 0. Collect your like terms. X squared plus 8x plus 1x plus 9x plus 16 minus 2 is plus 14 is equal to 0. That is a perfect trinomial. Let's factorize that. X. By now you should know the factors of 14 to give you a 9. 7 and 2 plus 7x plus 2x will give me plus 9x. 7 times 2 is 14. There's my two solutions. X plus 7 equals to 0, or x plus 2 equals to 0. X is equal to negative 7, or x is equal to negative 2. And there we go. Your problem is solved. Now, what your teachers will show you to do in the exam is to do a validity test. So all you have to do is take minus 7, put it, substitute it for x, and then work out where the left hand side will equal to right hand side, and then take minus 2, substitute it for x, and see where the left hand side will equal to right hand side. Whichever one gives you, if you get a square root of a negative number, that solution will not be valid, because you can never get a square root of a negative number. It's imaginary, it's complex, it does not exist. Okay, let's do another example of this. Boys and girls, I hope you are glued to your screens. I hope you are working with us. I hope that you are sitting and you are now preparing yourself now to be able to. Remember, if you do not know these processes, there's absolutely no way in which you can go and take your past papers and even attempt to start them until and unless you know you are rock solid, tight with what we are about to show you. Okay? Let's take another example here. We're going to make it a little bit more complex, and I'm now going to take 4 square root x minus 2 minus 1 is equal to x. Solve for x. Now we know the minute we have a third sign, we need to square both sides when the question says solve for x. So let's get started. What did I say? What's loose moves. So take the minus 1 on the other side. So what am I left with? 4 square root x minus 2 is equal to x. Minus 1 comes over, plus 1. Now we need to square both sides. So we square the side, we square the other side. So be careful. 4 squared, 16. Square and square root will cancel out. What am I left with? X minus 2 is equal to, remove. We are squaring a binomial. It's not x squared plus 1. Square the first term, x squared. Square the second term, plus 1. 1 squared is 1, not 2. Multiply the 2 inside the brackets, 1x, and times it by 2, plus 2x. Now remove these brackets. We got 16x minus 32 is equal to x squared plus 2x plus 1. Now we need to make, because it's quadratic, one of the sides must be 0. So what do we have? X squared plus 2x plus 1 minus 16x plus 32 is equal to 0. Let's collect our like terms. X squared plus 2 minus 16 minus 14x plus 1 plus 32 plus 33 is equal to 0. We now factorize that equal to 0. What do I get? X and x. My factors of 33 to give me 14. Let's see how sharp are you. Can you do it? 11 and 3. 11 and 3. Negative, negative. So x minus 11 equals to 0. Or x minus 3 equals to 0, x is equal to plus 11, or x is equal to positive 3. There we go, boys and girls. Those are our two solutions. And that will bring us now to the end of solving for x by squaring both sides. Let's now go on to solving for x by completing the square. Now this is a nightmare for 99% of you. I'm going to show you a shortcut. You're going to enjoy it, but you need to pay attention. And you need to practice on it. Remember, all these are templates. These are models. You need to master these models. Once you've mastered these models, then only can you go and apply them. And let's get started. Okay, so now the question says, solve for x by completing the square. And grade 12s, you know, you're going to be using completing the square quite heavily. There are two types of completing the square. There's completing the square in an equation, and there's rewriting it into a certain form. So, by completing the square, let's just put, the question will say solve for x, BCS, by completing the square. Let's take a question down before we cut for our ad break. Let's take x squared minus 6x minus 10 equals to 0. Now, what I'd like you to do, you go, you try your method. We're going to go for ad break. When we get back, I'm going to show you my method. Then we're going to compete. Who gets the answer quicker, you or me?
الأمجاد قد عظمت فللأمجاد بانيها إذا الأمجاد قد عظمت فللأمجاد بانيها.
Boys and girls, welcome back to another explosive segment. This is our final segment for the show. Boys and girls, I know it's been hectic. Parents, you might be looking here and you're saying, oh my word, what is happening? But don't worry, your child knows what's happening. A grade 11 and grade 12, he knows exactly what's going on. Because every question that we are doing, these are all exam type questions. So buckle up, get ready, and let's get started. Where did we break off before we went for ad break? We said we're now going to be doing quadratic equations by completing the square. Now remember, I'm going to tell you something and you need to listen to me. You only complete the square if the question asks. If the question does not ask, you either factorize as normal or you use the quadratic formula. You only complete the square by completing the square if the question asks. That's it. And the question will explicitly state in the exam, solve for x by completing the square. You then will apply this process. If you apply any of the other two processes that I showed you before, you will get 0. Listen to what I'm telling you, you will fail. So please pay attention as to what's going to happen. Now I told you, you try your method and I'm going to show you my method. Here's my shortcut. Now, we're going to start. X squared minus 6x. Step number 1, you take the minus 10 on the other side to become 10. Okay, now we're going to be completing the square. So we want a perfect square within brackets. How do we get that perfect square? Watch and pay attention. Put down your pens and focus on the TV. Let's go. The method is divide the coefficient of x by 2 on the other side plus whatever answer you get in the brackets here, you square it. So what's the rule? Divide by 2 plus x squared. What's the K-way rule? What's Mr. K's rule? Divide by 2 plus x squared. Divide by 2, make it like a mantra. You got to, when you close your eyes, you got to see it. Divide by 2 plus x squared. Divide by 2 plus x squared. We're going to do about 2 or 3 examples, so you better make sure that you pay attention. Let's start. So, we're going to put our brackets to get our perfect square. So, x squared, x. Whatever the sign is there, you bring it down. So, x squared, x, minus, minus. 6 divided by 2. Guys, 6 divided by 2, 3. Squared is equal to 10 plus, always plus. Now take this value and square it. Minus 3 squared is 9. There we go. We've completed the square. Done. Game over. I know what method you used. Must I tell you what method you used? Let's compare your method to my method. That's the answer. Question answer. I know what you did. You said x squared minus 6x plus, this is what your teachers tell you in school, half times the coefficient of x over 1 all squared is equal to 10 plus half times, whatever you do on the left, you do on the right, times 6 over 1 all squared. You then remove the brackets. You then said x squared minus 6x plus 6 over 2 is 3, 3 squared is 9, is equal to 10 plus 9. You then went and made this a perfect square. X minus square root of 9 is 3 squared is equal to 19. Can you see we get exactly? I skipped these 2 steps. You will not get marks for these 2 steps. You can use the shortcut. The shortcut will help you to get to this without doing these 2 steps. It's easier. Divide by 2 plus x squared. Divide by 2 plus x squared. So I'm going to erase this because we're not going to use this. This method will help you in the exam. Yes, to fail. So let's go. Let's go back and let's start. X minus 3, Mr. Cameraman, you're laughing. I hope you're enjoying it. Right, x minus 3 squared is equal to 10 plus 9. So what do we have? X minus 3 squared is equal to 10 plus 9, 19. Right, we now need to solve for x. So now this is square. We now need to find the square root of it. I need to get to x. How do I get rid of the square? I find the square root. So I find the square root, I find the square root. So what do I have? Square and square root cancels out. I'm left with x minus 3 is equal to, remember whenever we insert a square root sign, we put plus minus. Plus minus the square root of 19. We are solving for x. Take this 3 onto the other side. So x is equal to 3 plus minus the square root of 19. There's your two solutions. I'm just moving over here to the side. X is equal to 3 plus root 19, or x is equal to 3 minus the square root of 19. Game over. Problem solved. 6 marks for mahala. For free. Right, here we go. Follow the step. Divide by 2 plus x squared. Solve for x. Let's go. Let's move. Let's do another one. I'm going to do one. In fact, we're going to do two more. I'm going to do one where there is a coefficient there in the front. But not now. Let's do one more like this just to get you practicing, to get you working. Again, I'm telling you, if you feel like you still need more intensive training on this, get our DVDs. You can order our DVDs at kwaymath@gmail.com. We'll put up the email address. You can make all your inquiries. The most important, critical set that you would need for grade 11 and 12 to get your distinction. Let's go back. Let's go back. Make up one. Come, you give me figures. Mr. Cameraman, how about you give me a figure? Give me a problem. And let's complete the square. Let's say x squared. Give me two values. Mr. Derek, Mr. Mike, Mr. Parvez, give us figures. Anything. Minus, let's say 10x, minus 20 is equal to 0. There we go. All right, let's get started. Let's see, what do we do? Answer. What did I say? Step number 1, take your constant term on the other side. X squared minus 10x is equal to 20. Now, what do we do? What's the rule? What did I say before? Divide by 2 plus x squared. Divide by 2 plus x squared. Divide by 2 plus that x value squared. X in the bracket. So here goes. X squared x minus 10 divided by 2, 5 squared is equal to 20 plus 5 squared, 25. There we go. Problem solved. X minus 5 squared is equal to 20 plus 25, 45. Square root. X minus 5 is equal to plus minus the square root of 45. Take the minus 5 over. X is equal to 5 plus minus the square root of 45. There's your two solutions. X is equal to 5 plus root 45, or x is equal to 5 minus the square root of 45. Game over. Problem solved. Okay, if you guys are recording the show, take these problems down, put pause, take out your pens, take out your papers, master all these processes. That's what the show is here for. Come on, guys. Let's get activated. Remember something, when you need to learn mathematics, many of you just will need to be shown how. Mathematics is like sending an SMS. The first time you get a phone, you need to send an SMS. You do it 2, 3, 4 times. After that, it becomes natural. You guys can do it with your eyes closed. Some of you start sending SMSs and WhatsApping with your eyes closed. 3 o'clock in the morning when your phone beeps, your eyes are closed and you're still replying. If you can do that with your cell phone, why can't you do that with math? Come on, guys. Let's get activated. Let's be online. Stay online. Stay online. Let's now take one where there is a coefficient in front of x squared. So let's go. I now tell you 2x squared. 2x squared minus 5x. And now we're going to use an odd number. Minus 5x minus 10 equals to 0. Question in the exam, answer. Let's get started. Now we know when we complete the square, or before we complete the square, the coefficient of x squared must be 1. How do I get a 1 from a 2? I divide everything by 2. So what do I do? Let's divide everything by 2. X squared minus 5 over 2x minus 10 divided by 2. What we do to 1, we do to all. 10 divided by 2 is 5, is equal to 0. Let's take the constant term on the other side. X squared minus 5 over 2x is equal to 5. We haven't yet completed the square. No. Okay, boys and girls, we've put up this problem here with the coefficient in front of x squared. So now we divided everything by 2 and we got our constant term on the other side. We haven't yet completed the square. Now we start completing the square. So let's go back. What did I say? What's the rule? Divide by 2 plus x squared. The only difference is here you are working with fractions. That's the only difference. Don't be afraid. And if you still don't know fractions, you've got your scientific calculators. Use your fraction key. So x squared, x, minus. 5 over 2 divided by 2 is 5 over 4. Don't ask me where I got that from. Use your calculator. Is equal to 5 plus this whole value squared. 5 squared, 25. 4 squared, 16. Now, what do we have? X minus 5 over 4 squared is equal to 5 plus 25 over 16. Use your calculators. Should give you 105 over 16. Check it. 105 over 16. 105 over 16. Find the square root, find the square root. I'm moving to the side because we don't have space. So, we're going to have x minus 5 over 4 squared is equal to plus or minus the square root of 105 over 16. Right? X minus 5 over 4, remember we found the square root, we find the square root. So x minus 5 over 4 is equal to plus minus the square root of 105 over the square root of 16 is 4. Take this 5 over 4 now on the other side. X is equal to plus 5 over, minus 5 over 4 goes on the other side. Plus 5 over 4 plus the square root of 105 over 4. So this is 5 plus root 105 all over 4. Or your second solution, x is equal to 5 minus the square root of 105 all over 4. Boys and girls, those are your two solutions. Remember, we move from here to here. Just to show you, we move from there to there. And these are your two final solutions. Now, I hope you take this example down. Practice on these examples down. We're now coming towards the end of the show. Please ensure that whatever we've done quadratic equations by normal factorization. Just to quickly recap, we've done quadratic equations by factorization. We did quadratic equations with a coefficient in front, where we use our friend Mr. Snotkop. When we couldn't find, what did we use? We used the quadratic formula. And then we squared both sides. We did solving for x by squaring both sides. And then we've done solving for x by completing the square. And what was by completing the square? We take the constant term on the other side, divide by 2 plus x squared. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we've come to the end of our first segment, of our first show. Stay tuned for another explosive, dynamic show tomorrow. Same time, 3:30 to 4:30. Hope you enjoyed the show. Practice on this. Remember, practice, practice, practice. Practice makes perfect. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
الأمجاد قد عظمت فللأمجاد بانيها ومن يسعى إلى العليا سيدركها بما فيها ويبني مجده جذلا فروح الفذ يعليها ليصبح همة تروي عن العليا مغاربها.